Good evening, Kevin Morrison here, talking with you tonight about the religious identity of 19th century Alta, California, which is a mouthful of a title and sounds very focused. But I'm learning that there's a lot to that, and my original focus is changing. It actually still is as I've been putting this together today. This is a project I've been interested in since before this class and will be after this course also. But I think I've gotten to a point where I can present a final paper in this course. So I have that image there, the Spanish missions of Alta California, because that is what people think of. That is what we are taught as Californians in fourth grade public school for decades. This is the history of California. The nice Spanish missionaries came and shared their faith with the needy and open indigenous people. And now we have the great place of California. Of course, there's more to it than that, and it's more political than religious if you dig deeper into that history. But that's what's taught, and so it can make it hard to go through the historiography to get to the truth of all these things that happened. So this is just 6 years ago. The Pope canonized and gave sainthood to Father Junipero Serra, who is considered to be the father of the Catholic mission system in California. Fast forward a few years, these are statues of the same man. You can see the feelings of the people who live around those statues. I chuckled as I put this picture here because I realized the future historians are going to be able to identify the time period of photographs based on our face masks. But here we have, you can really see that this part of California's history is a political discussion, still 200 years after the fact. This was 2015 when the Pope was here doing this. In 2020, which was a crazy year anyway, you had people now expressing political views against Father Serra. So, and let me throw up this map again just to point out that this was definitely a geopolitical mission. Look at where these missions are located. This is still today the prime real estate in California. Plenty of native tribes all up in here, but they wanted the pretty views, they wanted the ports, they wanted control before if Russia came down here and got the same area. But this is what is taught as California history. In fact, here is I got this from my son's fourth grade teacher that just this week, the initial instructions for their California missions project. I did a California mission model in fourth grade, and I actually won an award at the county fair for it. But here's the instructions, and it talks about the beauty of the missions, all what they looked like, what their organization, what their source was, their names, who founded them, their natural resources. Way down here at the bottom, Spain's benefits and tribes' losses. That was not even on there when I did my mission project, but now it's getting there a little bit. So what's left? This is where my focus is going. So it came to a point where the Spanish mission system secularized and then nearly disappeared altogether. But what was left religiously in California? And this is where I'm really interested. Again, prior to this project, I was interested in California history because of our racial diversity and how, for the most part, everybody gets along. There's problems like everywhere, but we're very diverse and tolerant of each other compared to other regions. I was always interested in that. So now I applied it to the religious aspect of that, and maybe they're related. So the mission system left its mark, but abandoned religion. They became secular missions, owned by people who were not interested in spreading religion. Gold then brought the world and a variety of cultures to California, people who are not interested in spreading religion. We became an American state. So now we're influenced by the United States, who, as we know, has quite a Christian heritage with it. Now that's starting to work its way into California. Native tribes were left with a hybrid religion. There is evidence that Once the Spanish missions lost their religious influence, native tribes still kept many of the Catholic traditions that they learned and kind of combined them with what they originally had. Or some natives were so far removed that they weren't familiar enough with their ancestors' traditions to really go fully back to that. And newcomers largely preached to their own. So there's this huge flood of people coming into California, not as an evangelistic um, undertaking, but for other reasons. But preachers did come in, churches did come in to provide services to their people, to put it that way. So you had Christians coming in to preach to Christians, um, but they weren't necessarily looking to go out and bring in all of the people into that religion. So it became a religious land of plenty. There was religion to choose from. Still dealing with racial division, however, and the church kind of followed along with that, unfortunately. Um, Christian churches, Protestant churches decided that the Chinese and native tribes did not have the mental or spiritual capacity to really reach the correct level of Christianity that they would expect from them. So, kind of some ignorant racial stuff going on, which is true of racism in general. Many missionized native Californians retained religious and cultural practices, and kind of started to bring those even back from, they've kind of disappeared for a little while. So you have this huge variety of culture and religion and spiritual practices. Chinese and native Christian churches popped up, led by Chinese and native Californian people. So there were Christian churches that were led and populated by Chinese, by native tribes, because white Protestants decided, well, we can't include them. Well, there were still Chinese and natives that were strong enough in their belief, said, fine, we're going to start our own Christian church. However, materialism and secularism were large. People were not coming to California for their faith or to spread their faith, to evangelize. People were coming looking for other things. Obviously, the gold rush was a big part of that. Many felt they could live well without religion, and it didn't bother them if you had yours. So there was not a ton of religious conflict. There was exclusion for sure, but there were no religious battles, kind of fighting for territory, so to speak. And after decades of imposed religion, thank you, Spain, people moved to each his own perspective, you do you kind of idea in California. So we had religious pluralism. Many faiths existed without a dominant faith to push others out. And there wasn't really an effort to be a dominant faith. More cultures, more spiritual practices, more faiths kind of came to California, in the bags of the people who came from all over the world. And it became a religiously plural society, and people were okay with that. That was the secondary mission, the secondary plan of why people were coming to California. And you do still see a bit of that today. At some point, I'm going to draw the connections of this journey from then to what we have today. So that's where we're at. Religious identity of Alta California in the 19th century is definitely one of pluralism. Lots of faiths, lots of expressions of faith, and that was okay. That was expected, tolerated, and approved of by the residents of California. And here's some resources that I pulled some information from tonight, among many I'm looking at. But again, it's been kind of a frustrating journey. Maybe that's part of the historian's experience of, I know what I'm going to look at. Oh, wait, it's bigger than that. I got to kind of refocus, and I'm in that process, which is frustrating and also fun. So I'm also open to suggestions. If anybody has any ideas on, hey, why don't you focus on this? Help me out a little bit. All right. Thank you. And I look forward to your comments.